So, after 2 long, crazy years filled with depression, whole lot of doubts, over like 200 something job rejections, I finally made a breakthrough and was able to get my first job as a junior developer. Here's my story. The actual journey of me wanting to start physically wanting to code started in around mid 2020. And before that, as a kid growing up, I've always loved technology. I've always loved seeing the coolest new gadgets. So one day I Googled what job makes the most money. And at the time, it said a computer science major or a software engineer. And then it had like a little video of a TED talk on it. Saw the video, I was sold, and I was like, how do I get into this? But I didn't start right away. I was already working at my casino dealer job for like years, and it was a lot of, I was just tired of all the crazy customer interactions. When I got laid off of my job that I've done for like over 13 years, I figured with that downtime that it was now or never, to see if I could really change my stars and take a shot at finally trying to be a software engineer. So I thought the quickest way to do it was to sign up for a coding bootcamp. Man, was I wrong. I want to give a little bit of backstory on myself so that you guys know that just from seeing me, that I wasn't the smartest person in school. I dropped out before my senior year started, and that was due to me having to pick and choose trying to have an education or go to work so that my family has money to pay for the rent so we have a place to stay. I am 38 years old. I am a husband and a father of 2 kids. I grew up, born and raised on the east side of Long Beach. My family was not well off. We were on welfare for a good amount of time, and it was rough growing up, man. I knew real fast that I had to grow up fast, and that in that area for me, it wasn't just like academic education just didn't seem like a priority. It was more like survival. There was gang activity going down. There was me getting chased and jumped. Race wars in the 90s. It was a lot going on. And the crazy part was, even with all that going on, I was still able to make the best of things. I am the middle child out of 8 siblings, and I had to play big brother real fast. Just like many other kids growing up in that neighborhood, you do get caught up in that lifestyle of gang culture. And I was a very shy kid growing up, and that was partly because, one, I didn't want people to figure out that my family was poor. Another one was because, like, if I didn't really know you, I kind of saw like no reason to kind of go up and talk to you. So I kind of just stayed to myself and played a lot of like little handheld Tiger handhelds and Nintendos. That was kind of my piece. But I couldn't tell left from right. I couldn't tell the different sizes of the shoes. Remember in kindergarten, I would just wear my brother's shoes and going to the pile of shoes that my family had and eyeballing and picking out what I thought was my size. And I didn't know that I went to school with like 2 left shoes. That's just to give you guys an idea of where I'm coming from. So you can just tell by my upbringing, like I didn't have the proper guidance into figuring out how to be a software engineer. And just so you guys know, I'm still trying to figure it out. It's not something that I've always wanted to do. Like I've grown up to just love so many different things. I'm into so many different things: art, video games, dancing, music, just so many things. And the one time, even though I was going through all the drama and stuff growing up, that I knew I had, that I just knew that I wanted more out of life. When I was around 19 or 20, me and some buddies decided to go to a job agency. He was like, oh yeah, they'll help us, help us find jobs. It's like, cool, we all needed one. Go over there. And I remember meeting the guy who kind of like talks to you and see what your skill sets are. And he had us kind of sign like a job application. It showed like your name, address, and your history of work. And all I could show for was that I had worked at a purse cart at Lakewood Mall, and that I worked at a gas station on the west side of Long Beach. He goes, yo, tell me what you're into. I said, I'm into computers. I love technology. And he looked at me and he goes, with you telling me all of this, that you want to get into technology, you're good with computers, but he said, some people think they're so skillful and they're this and that when they're really not. And I was like, I know he's talking about me. And that didn't sit well with me. I knew he was wrong. Like in my mind, like I know that I'm capable of much more than what my job application said. And that's what made me always remember in myself that I was much more than my job application. Like that job application only showed the work that was available for me that I could do at the time. I've always wanted to go back to school and get an education because I thought that was the ticket. And that's what led to the whole like sign up for a coding boot camp. The experience I gained in the coding boot camp, I'll be honest, was probably like, I probably must have learned like 18% of everything they taught us in that 3 months. It went by fast, and I wanted to really, there were multiple times when I wanted to quit, especially the first week. It was an 8-hour day, 9 to 5, with like homework. I did them all. And like, even though we were taught full stack, it was still like a mess to me. I still did horrible in like lead code questions. Even the easiest questions, it just still wasn't making sense to me. Even though I was familiar with seeing code, the hard part was me not understanding it. I still have a hard time understanding where the code leads to. And it's a good thing we have Google. And it's a good thing now in 2023 that we have ChatGPT. In times where I should have been practicing code, I was just already like drained. And I would spend time with kind of like whatever I had left with my family, or just with my buddies on Discord, having a drink and just trying to whine out. It didn't really help. Depression set in, me being reminded that I'm a father and I should be doing much more. And it was a lot. It was a lot to take in. I had like this expectation and these high hopes that if I go through the coding boot camp, it's only gonna be 3 months, and after I'm done, I'll be able to land a job and make $100,000 a year. And like I said before, I was wrong. It took over 2 years for it to finally happen. I will say that after going through all of that you can learn without going to a coding boot camp. There's so much stuff out there that you can learn online, just from like free code camp. You can do tutorials on YouTube, and you can pretty much learn anything off of YouTube, just generally. And so in 2020, of me losing my job at the casino, we were given unemployment, which was good, but it wasn't enough to pay for the house that we were living in at the time. And we ended up losing the house. A marketing company had reached out and said, hey, we have a junior front-end developer position open. Would you be interested? And these are the requirements. And it's had labeled, HTML, CSS, WordPress, experience. I haven't really done WordPress, but I've done like some little sites on Squarespace. So I figured, what's the difference? And I wrote them back saying like, oh yeah, like I'm very interested. When's a good time to set up a call? They got back to me the same day and they said, how's 11 a.m. The next day? I was like, cool, we can do it. Get on the call, and it was pretty much an introduction call. And she had spoke about like what does their company do, what they're looking for, and then she shot it back to me and said, tell me a little bit about yourself. I spoke about my backstory, how I grew up, how you guys kind of heard, and then she wanted to know like how did I get into coding. I mentioned that I had signed up for a coding boot camp. I told her that I didn't have a degree, and I was real honest with her on my skill set, and that helped a lot in me showing that I was genuine and not to sell them a dream, because that was kind of before what I did and what I was kind of told to do from like one of my other buddies, just like, yeah man, you should just fake it until you make it. And I was like, okay, I tried, I fluffed it up, and then when it came time to show, I had nothing to show for it. So it helped me to be a lot more genuine on what I could do. I told them that even though I was taught full stack at the coding bootcamp, that I really enjoyed the front end. I really enjoyed seeing the visuals and seeing what it turns into. That was like my passion in it. And I had a better idea of what I wanted to do with the skills that I've learned over the time. And I had gone over and said situations like dealing with issues that I've had with a team member and how I handled it. I luckily throughout my life experiences and my work experience, even from the casino job, that I was able to pull from that and just interactions with people. And that was one of the things I've learned to acquire, was just patience and a lot of understanding and knowing that not to be overly expectations of what others should be or should do, and just take them as they are and just get better at treating people. And she really enjoyed that talk. And I had mentioned that I'm a father and 2 kids, and she had mentioned she had kids, and we spoke about our kids for a little bit. And that led me into saying that in just setting an example in myself and knowing that proving that I could do something that I thought that I had no chance in. And the call, at the end of the call, she's like, we had a really good call. I really enjoyed speaking to you. And she had mentioned that she wasn't going on vacation, but I remember asking like, is it okay to know if I'm going to be getting a call back from you? Because I don't kind of want to get my hopes up, because I had already had a second interview lined up with Google, which was the tech interview. And I already knew that I wasn't going to pass that interview, but I did pretty well. And I had another one lined up with another job agency that wanted to see where I was at in my skill set. She said, you know what, Shani, to be honest, I'm going on vacation, but I really like you, and I'm going to be sending you over to speak with the project manager, the CEO, and the actual developer of the company. I was like, cool. And be on the lookout for like in the next 2 to 3 days. And I might not be there with you on the call, but they will. I see an email from the actual marketing company, the project manager, and we had set up a call. And this call was a bit more realistic in knowing that, okay, I'm actually connected with these people. Now I'm actually speaking directly to the company, and I get to see if I can ask questions, even though like I still had doubt and I still felt like I wasn't good enough. I was like, man, uh, I have to really get this job because I wasn't in a good spot financially. And I wanted to really be able to support my family. I get on the call with everyone, and it was a Zoom call, and I'm the only one with my camera on. Everyone else doesn't really have it on. And it was a little intimidating because whenever I'm in the presence of an actual developer, I'm scared because I went through a coding boot camp. I kind of feel like a fraud, you know, but I didn't mention that. I stayed solid, 10 toes down, and really had the game plan of like, okay, whatever I spoke with the last person, that was kind of the same thing I was going to go through and just speak to them about. And it started off a little shaky because I kind of rambled about my story, and luckily the project manager is like, let's reel it in and let's just talk about more of your experiences. And I spoke about how I enjoyed the front end, and I was able to speak to the developer of the company and said like, what are the technologies you guys use, and what are like the day-to-day things you guys do. She had mentioned like, oh yeah, we worked with like WordPress, and a lot of HTML and CSS, not much JavaScript, but they do PHP. And I said, I don't know PHP, but I will always look up on Learn It. She said, cool. And I was also happy to know that it was a lot of just HTML and CSS. And that really brought a spark back into me because I knew I could do that. And I had mentioned like, okay, cool. Like I go, do you guys use any like CSS frameworks like Bootstrap or Tailwind? And she said, oh yeah, we worked with a lot of Bootstrap. I was like, cool. Even though I wasn't a master at Bootstrap, I was familiar with it. So now I'm getting somewhere in knowing that this is possible. And I said, I said, what are like the jobs kind of like? What do you expect me to do? They said, oh, we expect you to be able to look up a job task that's usually like, color a button or look at some HTML and CSS and go through and see if you can, put in some blogs and some posts, or, come up with like a landing page. Or I was like, all right, this is good. I can now have an idea of what's needed of me. And the call was slowly coming into an end, and I had no more questions. I had asked them like, is there any more questions you have of me? And they said, no, that's pretty much all we needed to hear. And with that tone, like I'm a person who kind of like overthinks things, and just like hearing how she said it kind of like made me feel a little shaky. And the Zoom she said, well, that's it, and just cut off the Zoom. And I remember taking off my headset and feeling drained and feeling like, damn, did I blew it? And I remember just kind of like staring out my window after the call and just thinking like, you know what? Fonk it. It is what it is. And even though I felt a little defeated, I still wanted it and needed to be that job. A week go by, no answer. I had already failed the Google interview. I had already failed the agency interview. And I just kind of like checked my email again, and I get an email from the marketing company. They invited me into doing their version of their technical interview. Second wind kicks in. I'm back on it. I look at what they needed me to do. They wanted me to pretty much replicate a landing page and give my thought process on how I did it. And if I can, host it publicly so they can see it. Boom. One of the things that I got good at, and that was kind of drilled into my mind at the coding bootcamp that I can take away from, was on the git commands and the git commits after doing something. He said, all right, this is a good time to do a git commit. Git add, git status, git push. And I added a README to the file of HTML and CSS, a little bit of JavaScript of just adding the new date, git full year for the footer. And just really showing in that GitHub file that I made sure they gave me a Photoshop file of a long looking landing page, and I just kind of like screenshot and went through and told them my plan of attack. Okay, I'm gonna start with the nav bar and just work my way down, and just gave my like description on how I would do it, and then show them the code on how I did it and why I did it that way. And got all that done, put it in a zip file, emailed it to the developer, and then hosted it on Netlify for free. And I had gotten the thing on Friday, and she had mentioned that you can turn it on Monday. I got it done in 2 days. I wanted to do more to it, but I didn't want to like overdo it. So I thought that that was good enough. And so I sent it in, and they said, cool, we got your project, and we'll get back to you. Days goes by. I'm feeling good about it, but I'm also like not sure. I know that this is pretty much that the call that I get or the email I get is going to be whether they're going to take me or not. And the original person that spoke to me came back from vacation, and she said, Channy, I want to speak to you, and I have news for you. And she didn't say on the email. She just needed to call me. So I'm thinking like, okay, whatever it's going to be, I just have to take it. I don't really have much hope. But I do hope that they're taking me. I get the call, and she goes, we spoke a lot. I went back and forth. And we got your project. And I just wanted to tell you that, and there was a long pause. She goes, we want to make you an offer. And that, you guys have no idea. Just hearing those words, what it did to me. Because that was a defining moment for me in my life. To know that a poor Cambodian kid from Long Beach with like no educational background was able to become something and have an actual career at something and something to show for. Because I grew up with a lot of people telling me that, I remember teachers telling me that I wasn't going to be much. And just hearing that she wanted to make me an offer, I was not picky at all. Even though like people told me like, you should have negotiated, I said, I didn't care. I didn't want to mess this up. I took whatever it was that they offered me. So now I can officially say I'm a junior developer. front end actually. And some things I want to mention to you guys that I didn't say before is that when you're applying for jobs, know that there's scams out there too. Because I almost got scammed, like getting emails. And if you ever, I was almost so close. And it was strange because there was a time where the CEO of a company that I spoke to on like some, like, I think it was a Microsoft like video call with someone who didn't even like give me no tech interview. It was just like, oh yeah, you're hired. And this was like the second call. And I was very like, I had to go and ask other people online if this was a scam or not. And I was so close because the guy was just like, oh yeah, you're hired. And I was like, okay. And you know, me already being in a desperate situation, I couldn't really tell if this was legit or not. And I had printed out the W-2 that they sent me and signed all my information, and they said to email it back to them. But before I did, I wanted to make sure if this company was legit. They had a website and everything, but it comes to turn out that someone on LinkedIn that I had mentioned, like, yo, is this real? And I tagged some of the people from that company, and I can see them looking at it, and other people had mentioned like, don't, like, you're never going to get a job without a tech interview. So don't give them any more information. And luckily I didn't email them the full-on filled out W-2 that I had for them, or else I would have been scammed. So be aware of that if you ever get emails from a company that's hiring you without going through a tech interview, it's not real. So guys, look, when I was younger, I was filled with like so many dreams and had so much imagination, and the world was just so bright with so much future. And as time went on, my dreams would slowly get buried by just reality from the responsibilities that I've gained over the years. I wanted to grow up so fast. And now that I'm older now, I'm 38, I don't want to get any older. And like, when did we forget that we had dreams? When did we allow our dreams to slowly just drift away? Every day when I woke up, going to a job that I hated, I was always reminded that there's got to be more to life than this. And just know that, you guys, I know this sounds typical or like cliche, but just know that if I could do it, you guys can do it. And if you're still struggling in making a breakthrough and you've been at it for a long time, you're getting rejections, just to keep at it, you guys, because eventually somebody will say yes to you. I just know it. Just going through that, there were a lot of no's. There were a lot of depression. Like, there was a lot weighing on me, you guys. So I hope that my story and me being a parent, me living in a garage, don't give up, you guys. If you still are waking up each day, and I know that you might not have much energy left after a job you go to, or even if you don't have a job, you're still wondering if this is even still the right path. I don't know if this is the right path. I'm still trying to figure it out. You know, me being at my new job as a junior developer, I don't know if this is something that I still like to do, but follow and see it through. Know that you've come this far, and not to have it go to waste. And just, you never know, you could be closer than you think. And I wish you guys, whatever it is you need, that you get it soon, swiftly and gracefully. Thank you guys. Take care.